Hello, in this video I'm going to show you how to publish your first public-facing website using GitHub Pages. So I'm going to open Google Chrome and go to GitHub. And I'm going to create a new repository. And I'm going to call it, let's see, Pages Site, let's just say. And I'm going to make this a public repository. So if you are, if you have a normal GitHub account, the free version, you're going to need to make your repository public in order to use GitHub Pages. So that does mean that your source code will be visible if it's in the same repository, and there are ways around that, but I wouldn't worry too much about that unless you have some groundbreaking proprietary code that you're going to be writing here. So now we've created this repo, and can open git bash, and I will navigate to where I keep my code, and I'm going to clone the repository using SSH. There we go. And going to use code to open Visual Studio Code at that new Pages site. So there are no files in here, which is as we expect. So now I'm going to show you, without even using Visual Studio Code or cloning the repository at all, you could literally just create an HTML file in the browser. So I don't recommend that you manage Git repositories this way, but you can just create a new file, and you could write some very poorly written HTML that says, "Hello, Mom." And we can name the file index.html and commit the changes. So now our repository contains one file, and we can go to the settings of the repository, and under code and automation, select pages, deploy from a branch, select the main branch. We're going to select the root folder because that's where our index is, and hit save. I'm also going to enforce HTTPS, and I'm not going to put a custom domain in here, but I have a custom domain in general for my GitHub pages, so this one is going to have that URL as a redirect. So normally what you would see if your username was njg4ne like mine is, you would see njg4ne.github, and GitHub even added some other HTML, or maybe the browser is doing that, but we really only placed this. So we should have done doctype HTML and all that other stuff, but the browser will understand what we meant when we do an H1. So that is all you really need to get started. You don't even need to go into VS Code or anything. But then I do just quickly want to show you how you could have also done that from your code editor and do a little bit more advanced things. But this is a great opportunity to show you what happens when the GitHub repository out online in the servers is out of date with what you have locally. So if I say git status, everything is going to look fine. There's nothing for me to commit to the repository as far as my local repository is concerned. But if I say git fetch all, This is going to basically bring down the changes so that my local Git knows about them, but it's not actually going to apply those changes to my repository. This is kind of like doing a Git pull, but without actually applying those changes. And what I can see is that there were some things coming down from origin main, meaning the main on the origin server where the code is stored, that are different from what I have on my main branch locally. And I'm still not going to see anything if I say git status, because again, that's about my changes going into the local repository. But if I say git pull, now those changes from the remote origin, meaning the server where the code is stored, are going to come down, and I'm going to have them. So you can see how this would be a problem if I had tried to make some files that conflicted with this. I would end up having a merge conflict when I went to push that code because I was working on an out-of-date repository. So it's always important to make sure that you resolve those types of issues by pulling down code from the remote repository if it could have changed from last time that you were working in your local repository. So now I can fix up this HTML a little bit. I'll just use an Emmet shortcut to make a quick document, and this is my pages site. And then a simple way you could structure this without any frameworks, without any advanced anything, is you can just start to link pages on your oops, this is not where it should be. This should be inside the body. You can just start to link pages inside of your body. So for example, you could add some links, some anchor tags that go to, for example, an about page. And so what you would want to do here is do // and this will mean whatever site we're on, because remember, you're going to have that prefix of, for example, pages site. It's not going to be directly on the top level domain here. It's going to be on the this path under that. So it's important that you use this dot notation, meaning from where my current page is, which is the root of that pages site, / about. I can make a link to the about page, and then I can make a new folder. It's good practice to put this in a folder and then just make an index file for it. And then I could go to .. meaning the page above, when I want to go back home. So right now I'm kind of working in the dark. I could reveal this in the File Explorer and look at it in my browser. And I see that link. I can click that link, and it's not going to like taking me to the HTML in that way, because because it's a file, it expects me to give it the full path, including index.html, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to use Node to run a popular server called Live Server. So I'll do npx node package executor live server, and I'll do that at the dot directory, the current directory. And now it's serving dot at this path, and this should be able to give me a good sense of what's going to happen when these pages go up to GitHub pages. So this is pretty much the functionality that I want. You can see it's changing to about up here, and then the dot dot will take me to the page above. And you see there's been no JavaScript, and I didn't even really have to use the server to test this, but it was good because there's a little bit of a difference between using the file protocol with your browser and using an actual TCP protocol with HTTP there. So let's push this code up to GitHub. So first we're going to have to git add dot to stage those changes, and then a git status just lets us check what's happening. We see green, which means those are successfully staged. Git commit -m to say adding the about page, and then git push and enter my passphrase. Now if I go to my pages site and I refresh this, I'll see I have new commits. This has been updated now, 2 commits, and I'll probably see under pages that this hasn't quite deployed. I'm still seeing 8 minutes ago, but in a little bit this will update itself. Occasionally you will also have problems with certain things about the way that GitHub serves your HTML files and your JavaScript files and things. So occasionally there's a tool called Jekyll, Jekyll, that GitHub uses, and I don't know a lot about this personally, but I know that sometimes when you have problems with GitHub pages, occasionally the solution can be to add a file that tells Jekyll to ignore your the normal deployment process, and sometimes I think that can speed up the process because it skips certain steps. So you'll add a file called .nojekyll, my bad. So .nojekyll, no contents of that file, just a name, and that's going to be picked up by Jekyll. And so we see now our site is deployed. We can go to the about page and home. Everything works like it did when we tested it on our computer. And now that I've made this nojekyll, I'm just gonna add and commit that as well. So that pretty much sums up how to get a GitHub Pages site up and running. You see that you can make a typical HTML file structure, and you can test it with an HTTP server on your local computer, and then that should behave somewhat similarly to how GitHub Pages will handle your code once it gets there. There are also other ways you can deploy this. For example, you can deploy from a docs folder, and so this will come in handy if you want to use like a bundler or something where you have source code in your GitHub repository, but then you want to create a different output that is ultimately going to be served statically to your users. So that's going to wrap up this video. Thanks for watching.